Good evening, everybody. December 13th, 2021. Bitcoin obviously sold off pretty heavily today. So we broke the 46.7K region that I was looking at as being fairly important. This region was support all through here. It was support here. And it was kind of the indicator to me as to whether or not this was in fact like WXY for a second wave down. As soon as this W is broken over here, I said if we fall below that level again, it's not going to be good, and that's what we saw today. So we do have a small possibility still of, let me just take that off, okay, of going upwards from here. If this somehow turns into, larger A, B, C, or WXY, that's what this green box is right here. It's that potential bounce spot for that to be just a larger, second wave basically. And if that's the case, then we'll need to drag this down. It's just going into a larger diagonal. I don't like this. I don't think it's what it's doing, but I do need to keep it, on here as a possibility anyway. The reason I don't like it is because in order for this to be WXY correction, this needed to be ABC right down there, ABC up in X, ABC down in Y. But now that that is not the case, right, because we've broken back down below the bottom of Y, this is definitely not a WXY. And what that means instead is that we're going to get rid of all these ABCs. This now looks a lot more like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's not an impulse, but it is a diagonal 5-wave down, followed by some corrective action here, and then a dump below that 5-wave, right? So this looks a lot more like the beginnings of a new dump than it does like, kind of the end of a corrective pattern here. But we do have the potential, if we stay within this green box and start pressing up to new highs, then that's going to be the case where maybe we go up higher, or maybe, we've just entered the kind of sideways chop fest that I've been talking about as a possibility as well. So that all sort of remains to be seen at this point in time. And get rid of this blue fib. I'm going to get rid of that count for now. Get rid of this orange box. All right. So yeah, like I said, potential ABC down, but I don't really like the way this A wave formed in order to consider it, high probability. So now what I have to look at instead is this forming, like I said, the next wave downwards? And if so, this would be our first wave down. Here's our second wave retrace, and we're entering the third wave. The velocity of this dumping does indicate that it could in fact be a third wave. I mean, that was a pretty aggressive dump downwards there. We had some volume coming in on that dump as well. So it makes sense for this to potentially be doing that. If that were the case, I would consider this to be our little 1-2 within the third wave, right? Here would be 3, 4 is what we're doing right now, and we should see a final move down. Really, it should bring us to at least this area here, 43.9. Down on the micro chart, it's pointing right now to this 1.236 region, which doesn't really make sense for it to be an impulse down. So I'm kind of expecting an extension downwards, at least to the 43 area here, mid 43s. But we'll see if that does in fact play out. And we'll go from there. If it does continue to dump down here, sooner rather than later, and get into this area here, I'll expect a little bounce up, maybe to, all the way back up to about 46 or so before final move down, which may take us down into this 40 area. And after that, we'll have 5 waves down and will have broken this low. It wouldn't really make sense to me to see it sort of just stop at that region. You know, like after 5 waves, we would see a hesitation. Typically, we'd see a retrace back up and then a further dump down. It's certainly possible for us to see that, and that's what, you know, Elliott wave would indicate that we would see. But if we break that low, I'm really kind of expecting that we see a larger move down, you know, kind of another wave of liquidations. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens there if in fact we do start breaking down below those levels. So let's real quick go down to the 5-minute chart here. It is acting a little strange on the 5-minute. You know, I would have expected it to kind of dump here a little bit sooner. I'm going to say that's 1 and that's 2, and actually drag this here. So what we have is basically this box here is kind of ideal rejection zone for 4. You can see we're kind of hovering above it right now. In order for this to stay impulsive, it needs to stay below the 0.5, which is right about 47.5 right now. So if it went back above 47.5, doesn't necessarily mean it's out of the woods, but it does take the impulse off the table, which just means it's harder to trade. Like if this was a true impulse, we'd be dumping before 47.5, and we'd have a target right here, pretty clear target down in that 44K region. Like I said, you know, 44.3 to 44.8, potentially with this extension down a little further into the 43K area here. So we'll have to see how that ends up playing out, but it is certainly possible, especially since the first wave down was diagonal. It's very possible that we get kind of an overlapping diagonal move down as well. So I'm really not going to be convinced that we are out of the woods. Even if we break 47.5, I'm not convinced that it's not going further down. It may just be doing it more in this diagonal fashion, like I said. So, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. It's crazy how oversold, you know, we are on the RSI. So like that's the one thing bulls definitely have going for them right now is RSI got down really, really deep. Oops. RSI got super deep here. PPO went super deep. We're getting, you know, a bounce right now, which is expected after such a deep dip there. Last time we got that is when we got this kind of silly spike up, and that killed the impulsive move in that move as well and made it a diagonal. So we may in fact see the same thing, like I said, sort of a spike up and then final drop down. But it's just really difficult to say right now for sure. We also have, not that it has really mattered, but we have a downtrend here. We're kind of butting up against it right now in the near future, so we'll see if that gets rejected from that downtrend, or again, even if it breaks out, downtrends have been disrespected over and over and over again recently on Bitcoin. So even a breakout is not really going to convince me. This one being the most obvious example of the, you know, most recent one that we had, where it broke out and then broke down, and then it kind of pretended to break out here again, and we're right back where we were, breaking down again. So I wouldn't really be trading a breakout on that, to be honest. But so I have started going into protection mode on my own accounts. I'm in protection mode here. I'm raising cash. I'm selling out of some of my positions. I'm not saying panic sell everything right now, but there is a large possibility of this continuing to break down, and if it does, we are once again looking into that 30K range, and I really don't want to be along for that ride. I would much rather be sitting in cash, or at least some cash, if that's going to be the case. So I am, like I said, raising cash in here, including my altcoin positions. I am raising cash, getting out of positions on this little bounce that we're getting right now. If it proves to be a mistake, that's fine. I mean, this action is not indicative at all of something that, we're going to miss out on a pump. And so that's kind of my point, this entire time was like, if we start breaking down and doing this choppy action, I really don't feel the need to stay in my positions. On the off chance that we do go down into the 30s, I would rather get out. And if it proves me wrong and starts trucking upwards here for another wave, okay, so be it. I was wrong, and then I can simply get back in on the next retrace down. But I will be much happier doing that than if this dumps and I've stayed in all my positions. I really don't feel like seeing my portfolio value plummet another 40% or whatever on the move down. So that's my plan. Make sure you have your own plan and that you're comfortable with it. If this over the next few days gives us more positive action, maybe I start jumping back into some stuff on pullbacks. Not on pumps, but on pullbacks. But other than that, this is really just a wait and see kind of situation for me. And right now, I am a human. I am an emotional being, and so perhaps I'm being too bearish about this because this dump today was just disheartening. But it also, just price action wise, is not looking super great. So. All right, I think that pretty much sums up my thoughts on Bitcoin right now. So everybody just kind of take that into consideration and, make a plan for what you're going to do if this continues breaking down. Are you going to stay in positions now until it breaks down more? Are you going to try to, sort of start raising some cash in this upper, if this bounces up a little bit higher? Just make your plan and stick to it and make sure you're happy with it. That's pretty much the best advice that I can give. All right, everybody, good night, and hopefully we'll have better news in the coming days. We'll see what the overnight action brings.